I don't even think we interact with our computers in the same way as we do today, 10 or 15 years from now. I can see a world where a patient walks in, says their name, they're automatically checked in. The person at the desk hasn't touched anything. It's just taking voice, translating it into the inputs that are in all the systems, and then delivering the things that right now require you to type and click and do this and that and the other thing. So I think that the friction will disappear over time and that it will just become natural to do the things that you need to do.
Most dentists aren't trained to run businesses, let alone scale them. This is the TechDental Podcast for dental leaders who want more than just tips. We give you systems, strategies, and straight answers. I'm Dr. Randeep, and each week I sit down with the operators, AI founders, entrepreneurs, and business leaders who are reshaping what's possible in dentistry. If you want a smarter, scalable, future-proof practice, then this is the podcast for you. On today's episode of the TechDental Podcast, I'm thrilled to be joined by Mike Huffaker, Chief Revenue Officer at Planet DDS, pioneer behind Denticon, CloudNine, and DentalOS, trusted by over 13,000 practices and 118,000 users. Mike has spent over 15 years scaling high-growth SaaS companies and is also the host of the Dental Economist Show, where he's redefining how DSOs and dental practices think about growth and technology. In this episode, we'll dive deep into the future of AI-powered dental software, leadership lessons from scaling a market-leading SaaS company, and bold insights on where the dental industry is headed next. I'm excited. Let's jump in. Welcome, Mike.
Hey, thank you so much. Really appreciate you having me on the show.
Mike, you've been deeply involved in revolutionizing dental software and SaaS solutions. What first drew you to the dental tech space? And how have your experiences shaped your vision for Planet DDS and its mission to fix broken dental software?
Yeah, so look, I got to be honest, when I first was reached out to by a recruiter for Planet DDS, I was in the restaurant and hospitality space. I was building and scaling teams for startups that were catering to point of sale solutions for restaurant and hospitality. And when I heard about the opportunity at Planet DDS, I said, dentistry? I don't know. I don't think I'm so interested in that. However, I did my research. I started to evaluate the market in a deeper way. I got to understanding that in North America and in the United States in particular, there's over 150,000 dental practices. Understood that the consolidation onto cloud solutions was in its infancy and that most of the dental organizations were still running on legacy server-based solutions. And also that there was a huge amount of consolidation taking place with the additional investment from private equity groups and a lot of roll-ups and consolidation from independent practices into small, medium-sized emerging groups and also larger DSOs. And when I started to put all those pieces together, I recognized just how much of an opportunity there really was in this space for disruptive, innovative, cloud-based enterprise class software to really improve operations and accelerate the growth of these practices. So, that's kind of where I ended up getting into dental. When I joined Planet DDS, we were actually a relatively small company. There was 60 employees at the time. Now we're at roughly 400. We had a handful of really kind of key strategic accounts that had started using our software over the years that helped us also build it to ensure that it met the needs of quickly growing organizations. And we immediately set to work in seeking to deploy our software across more multi-location groups. And that's really been the focus of our efforts. I'll touch on the dental software is broken piece real quick. That is our mission. Dental software is broken, we aim to fix it. And what we mean by that is for years, dental software has been very siloed. You hear about these different, HL7 standards in medical and different ways in which data becomes more accessible for the patients and for the providers. Dental never really had that. And so you had siloed data, you had server-based solutions where all your data lived within a practice itself. You did not have kind of consistent control across multiple locations or visibility. And there's a lot of technology that comes out and none of it played nice in the sandbox with each other. So it was broken integrations, very challenging to get your workflows dialed in individual practices and also at kind of a leadership or support level. So we looked at all of that and said, this is awful. Like this is a terrible experience for anybody that's trying to run a dental practice, let alone a multi-location dental group or a DSO. And we need to find a way to help be the facilitator to connect all of the new innovative technology and make it easy to use without throwing up walls and barriers because we're trying to protect our own business. And so that's what we set out to do. And that's where we released DentalOS and have taken the approach of being an open platform to truly facilitate integrated workflows and additional technology solutions being easy to work with your core system of record.
That's an awesome vision, Mike. Over the past decade, the SaaS has dramatically reshaped how dental practices manage operations, from patient data to financial workflows. How do you view the evolution of SaaS in dental practice management, particularly in the context of the core system of record? And where do you see the biggest challenges in integrating these solutions across the industry?
Yeah, so I think in general, the adoption of cloud SaaS solutions in dental has been delayed in comparison to other industries. When I joined Planet DDS 5 years ago, we estimated that 15% of dental practices were using a cloud SaaS solution. If you compared that to other industries, medical, real estate, you name it, you were looking at mostly 60 to 80% cloud adoption rates. The reason why I think that happened is that the largest names in the dental space were suppliers. And those were the most well-known. And that's also where people were buying their software, which was also relatively unique to dental. So, and what was taking place was those large players in the space did not have a cloud software solution. So for years, they would guide their clients like, hey, you don't need cloud. Cloud's not right for you. You should be using the server-based solution because that's what I have to sell you, because I have nothing else. So this is the guidance that you're now going to receive. Then there was also the component of so many MSPs, IT providers, who a lot of their business was dependent upon setting up cloud backups, doing hosted solutions, and they felt threatened by the cloud. So the industry itself was really under kind of a lot of pressure from the biggest names and kind of reliable voices to not move to a cloud solution. And that's all changed over the past, I would say, 5 to 7 years. It started in the States when the large suppliers felt that their product was now a viable solution to go to market with and switched the narrative. And it was no longer, hey, you don't want to do this. It was now, hey, we have this to sell you. So let's promote this. And this is something that you all should be thinking about, which quite frankly is how it should have been for a much longer period of time. And there were solutions in the market like Planet DDS, like Curve, in the States, lots of practice management solutions that were available. They just weren't available from the largest, loudest voices. And so what we've seen, however, is there has been a pivot. There's been a switch in the narrative. There is now across the board a real focus on moving to cloud SaaS, core system of record, EHR, DPMS solutions. Yet many people still have not done so. So the adoption rate, is still lagging overall. I think what is ultimately going to kind of put most people over the edge and move them into cloud is that you're not going to have the capabilities to take advantage of new technology in the way that you'd like to if you remain on server-based solutions. And so the benefit that you're going to get with the advent of AI that we're already seeing with a lot of really great companies, as well as the importance of data sanitization and consistent data schemas across multiple locations where you don't want to have fragmented solutions, and really the need to have a single patient record to provide great outcomes for your patients and consistent experiences across your practices and your organizations are ultimately going to force people to realize I am so constrained with what I had been doing before, that there's no choice but to make this change if I want to be a practice in the future that is running a successful business, which dental is a business. It's at the intersection of profit and purpose. And in order to properly serve your patients, you need to run a healthy business, and it won't be a choice any longer. And so that's really what I've seen change over the past, decade, is there being a real focus on the server-based solution as good enough, as you don't need to move, as if it works for you, it's not broken, why fix it? To a look, this is really antiquated. These server-based solutions in some ways are dead men walking. Think about it this way. If you are purchasing your software, your server-based solution from a vendor that also has a cloud solution, how much investment do you think is still going to take place in that server-based solution to stay up to date with the latest innovations and technology? I can answer that. It's going to be very little, because now they've moved on. They're keeping that available because there's such market share, but they'd rather have everybody on their new solution if possible. So that's where we're at today.
Fascinating insights there, Mike. And in terms of, going back through the kind of fixing the broken dental software analogy, part of that is obviously the integration of AI. Could you elaborate on what agentic AI means within dental practice management platforms and how it differs from traditional AI tools we've seen so far? How do you envision the shift in AI playing out across DSOs and multi-site groups?
Yeah, so a great question. And I actually think that there is more of a promise of agentic AI inside dental right now than a reality of agentic AI. But that means that you should work to prepare yourself to be able to take advantage of it when that promise becomes reality. And so right now you have amazing AI solutions across the board for radiographic AI. You have call coaching AI. You have AI that's acting like a receptionist. And many of these solutions offer a lot of value as it stands today. But when I think about agentic AI is the replacing of tasks that take place within a dental practice that nobody wants to do. And if you think about what has to happen, and you know this very well as a longtime practicing dentist, there's so many things that are administrative annoyances or frustrations that need to happen day in and day out. And those are not the things that the staff, the team members in a dental practice find joy doing. So if you told somebody, hey, you're no longer going to need to open up all these envelopes and post claims, they're going to be like, great, take that off. I'd rather focus on the patients that are coming into the door and give them a great experience. Or, hey, listen, when there's a cancellation on your schedule, you're no longer going to need to pick up the phone, call a bunch of people, fill that spot to make sure that the hygienist has work to do during that particular hour. It's going to be handled for you automatically. You just make sure that when that patient walks in the door, they have the best experience possible. And what agentic AI will do is run particular tasks within a practice, within the same workflow. You can think of it as your person sitting at the front desk or your office manager, things that they do, clicking the mouse, moving the mouse certain places, doing this, that, and the other thing, being replaced by an automated solution that does it for them. Now, this is why it's so important to have standardized systems as well, because the agentic AI works on consistent data across multiple systems. If you want to have a fragmented ecosystem with 4 different practice management solutions across your 8 practices, you'll never be able to take advantage of the agentic AI, and you won't have the opportunity for it to replace tasks that your team already doesn't want to do. And so I actually think it's going to be a really big benefit to dental. I think it will help with recruitment. When you are hiring individuals, they no longer have to do the things that nobody finds pleasure in doing. They can focus on the things that have the greatest amount of joy and satisfaction and purpose in the role. And it will make the job less laborious for individuals. So I'm really excited about that kind of future. I do think it is still the future. I don't think we're there yet. But it's not far away.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Yeah, 100% agree with that breakdown there. So it's almost having that balance between the automation and the human touch is what's really going to be important moving forward. And as AI continues to take on more operational responsibilities, and it may not be there 100% yet, but it's coming. I mean, what does this mean for the future of staff roles within the practice? How do you ensure that the human element is still a priority in patient care? And how do you foresee that being changed or balanced?
Yeah. So there's a phrase that people use as it relates to some of these automated tools and the responsibility of individuals, and it's human in the loop. And there is still a need for human in the loop in order to provide that personal connection and to be able to ensure that what's actually taking place from the AI is also done properly, to fix things that are outliers. Look, we've been around, you and I have been around for a long time. There's always broken processes. Every single company is always trying to build new processes. So that the notion that all of a sudden AI by itself is going to come in, fix fragmentation, fix all your processes, do all of these things, and there's going to be no human need for intervention, no exceptions, right? Everything's always standard. You never have an exception to your rules. No, of course you do. And so there's still a lot of importance that's going to be placed on human capital and their ability to be in the practice and solve for things that are maybe unexpected, while also providing that excellent, patient experience. And, look, I think I've had some conversations with people where they're like, look, I would be fine with running unstaffed waiting room where my patients come in, they click on a tablet, they never see anybody, they walk in the back, and then, they're getting their hygiene appointment or they're meeting with the dentist. I think that's a little bit maybe ambitious. I think, look, there's not all things for all people either. So maybe there's a segment of the market that would find that appealing. And you're saying, look, my ideal patient profile is somebody that wants as little human interaction as possible up until the point that they get in the chair. Hey, maybe there's going to be practices that are like that. It doesn't mean that those that want to still, embrace their patients with warmth when they walk in aren't going to have a place. I just think you're going to see different business models like you always do, that are maybe more easily facilitated by the advent of AI.
Yeah, I don't know how I'd feel if I went into a fully automatic, probably a bit dystopian actually. So I think, yeah, a balance would be nice. So kind of moving on from the kind of patient focused side, I mean, financial management is a crucial part of any dental practice. And in terms of AI transforming that space, I mean, could you dive deeper into how, AI and perhaps in future agentic AI could transform the financial decision-making process in dental practices, and how that could help them to kind of grow and scale? What's the opportunity there?
Yeah, for sure. So caveat here, in the States, I would imagine that insurance and other things are handled in a different way than they are in the UK. So maybe some of what I'm saying is not as applicable. But when you look right now at dental practices in North America, revenue cycle management, managing the financial side of the business is one of the biggest challenges. There's declined claims, there's outstanding balances, there's accounts receivable that need to be collected, there's patient balances at the end of a procedure taking place that were unexpected. There's a whole lot of complexity to solve for that right now requires a lot of manual effort. And so some of the things that we're seeing take place, on the patient financing side, there's a lot of innovation taking place there. A lot of different providers, Care Credit's a big one. There's also Sunbit, there's iCreditWorks. There's all these different companies that are seeking to solve to make it easier for clinicians and their staff to present treatment plans and gain acceptance and have the confidence that they're going to be paid for the work that they are providing for those patients. And so I think you're seeing a lot of improvement in the ability to educate a patient during the case presentation process to ensure that the patient is getting the best care possible and also really clearly understands the financial implications, which then create the ability for the practice to collect effectively. On the insurance side, there's a lot of automation taking place with received claims. So 835 auto posting, where you no longer need to post that. And then in the event where there are outstanding balances, tons of automation taking place there, where it's, hey, look, we have this outstanding balance. It's aged 60 days, 90 days, however you set the thresholds, and it will automatically reach out to the patient, provide them with a payment link. They can use Apple Pay or Android Pay or any of the solutions, type in their card number if they're, old fashioned, on their phone, make their payments, no problem. And so the financial health of the business, getting paid quickly, there's a lot of tools out there already to help with that. I think what's challenging in the space is there's so many tools that people get overwhelmed, and it sometimes feels like, well, this does this does this, and this does this. And there's some opportunity for a little bit more of a comprehensive approach. And then, of course, taking all of that data, all of that information, and putting it into, your accounting software of record, and ensuring that it is being managed properly for your P&L and everything else. There's a lot of gaps right now between practice management solutions and accounting software. In fact, most of them don't have integrations. It's a kind of export-import sort of deal, with determining what is needed to be exported or imported, unless you're doing some type of data warehouse. And so I think that is, a challenge that people are still trying to solve.
And what about safeguards? I mean, with automation and AI, it speeds things up. It's a multiplier. And you mentioned having kind of holistic data systems and integrated PMSs, and it's always the results you get are always going to be dependent upon the quality of the data. So what kind of safeguards are there if you have practices maybe who are a little bit reluctant in adopting AI technology or cloud-based technology? What safeguards do they have with their data, and how intrusive would the AI be, and where would the controls be in that if something does go wrong? What I'm trying to get at is the accuracy of the data. How can you ensure that?
Well, I think there's a kind of a couple questions there: the safeguards and the accuracy, and the safeguard piece is incredibly important. Dental and medical have become really big targets for ransomware, for hacking, and in large part on the dental side, because the infrastructure and architecture of most solutions that are in the market today don't have strong security postures. They don't have, SOC 2 certification. There's not the same type of security that you get with an enterprise class cloud solution. So I would say those are really important questions to ask any vendor that you want to work with. And when you're actually in your buying process, you need to get very comfortable that they're going to be handling your data properly. And you don't just take don't worry about that. We're great with that. Our security, okay, is it? All right, tell me why. Can we get a little bit more information? What is your security posture? What's your data redundancy look like? How do we know that do you have any certifications that are showing that over time you are consistently meeting the requirements of being a good steward of my data? These are important things. As far as the quality of the data, that's a tricky one. I do think that cloud solutions in general, now it's important to note, cloud doesn't necessarily mean enterprise. Enterprise means functionality within a cloud solution that more easily enables you to run multi-locations, versus just the visibility and access anytime, anywhere. But cloud solutions in general will afford you an ability to have more consistent data, because you're not relying on a server in every single practice, a software solution in every single practice, where somebody can go and be like, I'm changing this procedure code. I'm going to add this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to put this in there in a different way. And now all of a sudden your data looks different. People are using fields for different things in each office. You have less control to prevent data from getting incredibly messy. And the data schema in each of those solutions, in particular, if they're different server-based solutions, are going to be completely different. So even if you try to normalize it with a data aggregation layer at the top, it's really tough. Cloud does solve for that in a pretty meaningful way. So the two things, strong security posture on top of a cloud solution, maybe even one like what we offer that has single patient record, it will really allow for you to start to take advantage of these AI tools, whether it's financial, clinical, operations, in ways that you're not going to be able to appreciate if you don't have that groundwork, foundational work complete.
Now that's awesome. And in terms of how could dental practice owners leverage these systems? I mean, could you give an example of how they can be used, not just day-to-day operations, but for long-term strategic decisions such as growth or expansion of a group or getting external investment? How can these be leveraged to make those easier, the growth, expansion, and investment?
Yeah, I think there's a few different components to this. One is if you're using these systems, you should have better data, better information. Look, what's a process? A process is created ideally to create a repeatable outcome. That's why when people say, hey, will you build a process on that? It's like, yeah, so I'm building this. And now I should be able to expect that if I do X, Y, and Z, then this is the result more times than not. Whether, on the sales side, it's closing a deal, or on the dental side, it's like attracting a new patient, getting the patient to accept their treatment, ensuring that payments are taken. And so AI should start to help people normalize their processes. And now if you're looking to grow, you need to understand, do we have what we need in place? Let's say we want to open another practice or we want to add a new operatory. This will give you the data, the analytics to know, okay, when we do these things, when we run these marketing campaigns, when we do X, Y, and Z, we can expect this amount of new patients each month. When we do these things related to follow-up, patient engagement, review management, whatever the case may be, we can expect to retain X amount and see X amount come back. And so now we know that we have a foundation built within our organization to go ahead and scale and grow. It becomes a template. Now, as long as you pick the right locations and you have the right providers who are able to provide excellent clinical care, you get all of the surrounding information. You'll know the health of the business, our P&L. And so it helps the organization to continue to grow. Now, also, if you're looking to get investment or bring on a new financial sponsor, the diligence is much easier if there's visibility into all of it. And I think that's where a lot of deals get muddied up these days is if I'm an investor and you've got 10 different systems or they're all server-based, and again, the data is so messy, I'm going, how can I trust what you were telling me to be true? I'm very unsure about whether or not the finances as you're reporting it, because you've now translated everything from your core system of record to a bunch of spreadsheets. That is, those can be changed. So, where am I getting the visibility that I need to have the level of comfort to help me understand why this is a good investment? So I think all of those play a part. AI can help with all of that. It's starting to. But I think that there's, aside from the AI, again, I think that there's just a need to really focus on the fundamentals of business, because AI is a multiplier. It doesn't fix all this. So if you're already broken all over the place, you can't just go, I'm going to put new AI tools, radiographic AI, and now all of a sudden we're going to diagnose more. We're going to get higher treatment plan acceptance. It's like, you know what? If you don't have the chair side manner that you need and the right approach to educate your patients, even with the additional diagnosis, it's not going to work for you. So you need to ensure that the basics are there. It will multiply your bad behaviors in the same way that it will multiply your good ones.
That's a really interesting distinction. I think a lot of people have a kind of notion that AI will come and fix everything, but it's, as you mentioned, it's a multiplier. So you got to make sure the foundation is there, it's ready. You've got the clean data, and AI will kind of take it to the next level. So that's a great distinction. And Mike, Planet DDS is known for its integration of multiple tools into a unified platform. How do you see the integration of AI into this system evolving? Specifically, how do you balance the flexibility and adaptability of a SaaS platform with the decision-making power that AI brings to the table? I mean, how would you kind of balance those two?
Yeah, sure thing. So there's been a lot of talk about maybe the death of SaaS, where people are like, look, AI is going to eat SaaS for lunch, and now SaaS is going to go away. That is a risk for certain SaaS companies, and actually for everyone to some degree. Now, us being a core system of record in a vertical market, I feel like we have some benefits because so much of the workflow is dictated and ingrained into the software. And so, what I think you'll see is a few things. On the integration side, the way integrations used to work with all of the solutions was, okay, you open up your practice management window. And if you want to integrate with a patient engagement tool, you now open up that window. And so you've got two windows. Now, the patient engagement tool, it reads data from the practice management, and to some degree, it writes data, but there's typically historically limitations in how much it writes. The software vendor of the patient engagement tool always wants the practice management vendor to open up more endpoints to be able to write more into it so that their software can be more effective. Oftentimes that doesn't happen. And so there becomes, in some cases, all these different windows opened up. What we're starting to do is wanting to put the windows together. So the notion of single pane of glass. So example of that, the top AI, radiographic AI providers right now, Pearl, from an international perspective, is bar none, far and away ahead. You've got Overjet, who's doing some really incredible things in Video Health. And in the States, we have integrations with all three. And not just integrations to where you have this window and this window. You take an image, and then now you have to open up another third-party software solution. Nope, those results, the diagnostic assistance with caries detection, bone loss, everything, the overlay, which is so beautiful and helpful, not necessarily for the clinician who has been trained on how to read these, but for non-clinical folks like myself who want to build trust with their dentist and understand what the heck is happening in my mouth. It's an amazing tool. And now it lives right inside the Denticon practice management solution. You don't need to open another window. We're doing more and more of this where we have a dashboard that will represent undiagnosed treatment opportunities based off reading the schedule for that day. Now, that function is available in other software solutions that are integrated, but we pull it inside the practice management solution. So now it's right in front of the staff when they log in. They see the list. Here's all of our patients coming in today. Here's the opportunities that are undiagnosed. Click on this, look, see what the images look like from their last visit, and highlight to the clinician, hey, maybe make sure to discuss this, assuming that there's agreement that this is something that needs to be discussed, and it could potentially lead to more treatment. So the integration of workflows with using third parties, and we do this with claims clearing houses, we do it with patient engagement tools, where we get the functionality to present in the system that you're using every day, even if it's powered by some really innovative technology. And I think we'll see more of that from an AI front, whether it's voice perio or whatever, you name it. You don't want to have to go clicking around to this technology stack that's 15 different solutions. It removes the ability to properly adopt the technology, and then you lose out on any of the investment and spend that you've put into that because your team's not actually using it.
Very interesting. As AI technology advances, Mike, what advice would you give to dental practice owners who may be hesitant to fully embrace these systems? Maybe due to concerns about losing the personal touch or losing a certain amount of control over their practice. I mean, what would you say to those owners who may be on the fence about this?
Start using LLMs on your own and get familiar with them and gain an understanding of what they actually do. And so I don't care which one, ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, Grok, you name it, but start using these tools so that you can recognize they're not as scary as you think. And you'll also see the gap that still exists between what they provide and what you need. And so, hey, look, these are real basic things, but I need to put out a new job listing for a front desk. Let me have this LLM write that for me. Okay, great. I want to write a letter to a patient to apologize for a bad experience that they had. Let me have this do that for me. And then get more complex with it and start using it as a strategic partner. Like, I'm thinking about doing this for my business. Should I expand with an additional operatory? Here's the data that I think will be important to you. Here's how many new patients we have. Here's the production that we're doing. Here's how many providers we have. Here's this. Ask me 3 questions about my business to help you understand better, and then provide for me 5 ideas of what I can do to grow, and start seeing the capabilities of AI, not necessarily productized in the form of, a front desk receptionist tool or something else like that, but what is available in the market today. Because the underlying things that are powering a lot of the software technology are LLMs. And so it's important, I think, for people to understand it before they just go off the handle and start buying tool after tool after tool. And what that will hopefully allow them to do is gain a greater level of comfort in understanding where there is still the role for a human in the loop, and also to show what some of the capabilities are and have some of those light bulb moments where you go, hey, if I don't do this, I am likely going to fall behind in the future. And so I think that's where you start. I know it sounds rudimentary, but many people skip the familiarity with the tools themselves to go to, well, somebody said this does this, and I want that. So let me just buy that. And then people start kind of lighting money on fire and throwing it out the window. So to me, it's taking a step back, moving a little bit slower. I know there's a lot of pressure. People feel a lot of pressure. I feel a lot of pressure day in, day out. Like, am I doing enough? Am I preparing my team well enough to be successful in this day and age and to move forward in a productive way? But the reality is, unless you are a OpenAI, Google, Meta now, who's signing billion-dollar contracts for AI engineers, unless you're one of them, if you're running a small to medium-sized business, you're not really behind yet. It has not yet become so mainstream. So you can do it right, and just take a deep breath, recognize that there's amazing opportunity, and then start to educate yourself on it.
Yeah, that's really great advice, Mike. Really great advice. Educate yourself and do it at your own pace. And a lot of this stuff you can go out there and just play with it on your own without costing a lot of money.
Absolutely. I mean, it's free. And look, the thing is, if you're even thinking about it, you're already ahead of other people. So if you need some form of, like, where am I on the curve to feel better about yourself, you can just recognize that the fact that you're already thinking about what you need to do, and you're curious about AI, and you're trying to do research and learn, means that you are ahead of the curve in many ways from peers that are out there that are maybe even obstructionist AI folks that are like, I refuse to look at this. There's no way this is going to be good for my business. So I think you're on the right track, and everybody should give themselves maybe a little more grace, a little more patience to get where they need to be.
Great. And Mike, you transitioned from a retail background, right, into kind of SaaS, and then now CRO at Planet DDS. I wanted to ask you, how did your early sales leadership shape your approach to building high performance teams in dental tech? I mean, how did that kind of retail background transfer into the dental side? Yeah, I mean, over your 15 plus years, you must have learned a lot. So what's your kind of perspective on that?
I think I have an interesting background. I don't think it's a standard kind of career path for somebody that ends up being a CRO of a technology SaaS company. I just kind of went where opportunities presented themselves initially in my life. Like, when I was at college, I was working for Nordstrom, which was a really kind of high-end department store, and I managed the men's shoe department. And the Nordstrom was really, really well known for amazing customer service. Like, Under promise, over deliver was the mantra. It was on the stairs when you walked down in the store every single day. You saw it on the wall. And when a customer would come in and they had a product that they thought was defective or that they were not happy with, no questions asked, take it back, return it. And so it was an opportunity to see a thriving business that was doing really well while also being very customer centric. And so I took that with me always. And when I first got into technology, it was the way that I approached my customers that I was trying to sell to. And I started as an account executive at a tech startup that was selling point of sale solutions. And within a few months, I got moved into a team lead position, became the first sales manager, and then they moved me to Arizona, where I still am, to open up sales offices. This is 5 months into tech. I had no idea what the hell I was doing. I got to be honest. Like it was kind of one of those things where it was just continuing to be curious and seeking opportunities and trying to do right by people. But moving into tech was really the first time in my career that I made a conscious effort to take control of where I was going. So up until that point, it was like I worked at Nordstrom. Then this opportunity with a vendor showed up. It was Cole Haan, who was owned by Nike. Then I was working for this other company that was out of Italy that's really high-end men's shoes. And I was selling them to Nordstrom and Neiman Marcus and Saks and Zappos and all these companies. And then, it kind of struck me that I was reaching the upper limits of what my potential was going to be within that industry. And that was the moment where for the first time I was like, what do I want to do? That existential crisis of where is my purpose in this world? And I was 34. So I was like, well, this is not really where I thought my life was going to be. But I was living in Northern California, Silicon Valley, kind of the hotbed for technology, lots of friends that were working with startups and other things. And decided like, look, if I can learn how to sell software well, this was my thesis at the time. I recognize things have maybe changed a little bit, but at that moment in time, if I can learn how to sell software well, I will never be unemployed. That was my job security thought process. And so that's what I went out and sought, and could not find a role in larger tech. They were like, I don't want this old man that's never sold our stuff before. No, thank you. However, I found some startups that were willing to take a chance on me, and kind of fell in love with the startup thing. I really, the element of building is so exciting. And then when you see the customers actually get value out of what you're selling and what they're using, it's addictive in some ways. You're like, I want to do more of this. This is fantastic. So that was kind of, how I got into tech. And, I spent a number of years in the hospitality place before Planet DDS came calling. And when I joined Planet DDS in September of 2019, I had 2 sales reps, 1 person from marketing. It was his first job out of college. That was sales and marketing circa, almost 6 years ago, 5.5 years ago. And now there's 75 people in the revenue organization. And, we're 10 times larger than we were then. And it's just been a heck of a ride. But I will go back to this. The experience that I gained in retail about putting the customer first, about understanding and having empathy as to the experience that they have day in, day out, is something that as long as you keep that front and center, a lot of other stuff tends to work out okay.
That's an amazing journey. And you mentioned kind of your scale now with Planet DDS, but you have 13,000 practices? Is that correct?
Yeah, we've got roughly 13,000 practices. We had around 700 in 2019, 2020. We have done some acquisitions. We acquired Apteryx Imaging. We acquired CloudNine, which was kind of the category creator of ortho cloud practice management software. Actually, Apteryx was the category creator of cloud imaging software, and Denticon was the category creator of enterprise cloud practice management software. So it's kind of cool that the DNA heritage that we have with our product assortment. But yes, we now have roughly 13,000 dental practices using across those 3 products in the marketplace.
Fantastic. And what are some of the challenges and breakthroughs that you have to go to when you're kind of scaling to that level? I mean, how do you kind of approach the go-to-market strategies when you're scaling to that level?
Yeah, so it's really hard not to say yes to everything because you just want to sell something to anybody that's willing to buy it at that moment in time. You're like, we're small. There's pressure to grow. And I think what we did a really nice job of at the outset was at least identifying that even though we're not going to say no to private practices that are interested in purchasing our software, our efforts in obtaining new business are going to be focused on multi-location groups, emerging, and DSOs. And so we, at the time, had 2 or 3 lighthouse accounts. So, those accounts that you can kind of stick your flag in and say, like, we can use these as references. They're happy with our product. We partner really well together. So we had a few of those. And then over the past 5 years, we've pursued that part of the market relentlessly. And we now work with over half of the 60 largest DSOs in the United States. And so it's knowing who you want to be, which is really hard at the outset of a journey with a go-to-market motion. And it's trying to stay focused on the activities and the events that create the biggest amount of upside for you and pushing the others away and saying, this is not where we need to go today. Even if you want to get there sometime tomorrow, that's okay. So I think those were some of the big lessons, some of the big learnings. For me, it was also being involved, hands-on. I still am to this day in large engagements that we have. I don't think your job as a sales or revenue leader, I'm not a dashboard guy. I mean, I am. Look, I care about the numbers. I need to know, but I want to be on calls. I want to go and see people. I want to help my team close more deals. I want to remove obstacles from them so that they can be more successful. And so it's just having a kind of maniacal approach to wanting to always know the ins and outs of what's happening in these large engagements that we have. And when I first joined Planet DDS, I said, I have to close some business because otherwise nobody will ever find me credible. And so I took some of the accounts myself to show, hey guys, I know how to do this. So now hopefully there's enough credibility where I can coach and you will listen and we can work together to continue to grow and expand. And so to me, also, if you're in sales, you should love that part of it anyways. And, it's been an important element in the growth of the organization is to just stay involved in those deals and try to help your team succeed. I'll say one last thing. We relatively early on created what we call the revenue team principles. And it's 8 principles, and we hold to them very closely. And it's a underpinning of the culture that we've created in the company. And it's something that I think some people go, oh, okay, yeah, core values, mission, vision, values, that everybody's got them. And they're actually really powerful if you're able to keep them front and center consistently, and they help define who you want to be, and they help for the team understand what type of organization they're working with. But the kicker is there will always be pushback against those. There will always be folks that don't necessarily adhere to them. And so you have to protect them. And that's the hardest part. If one of our principles is negative and toxic behavior are never worth the revenue that they create. In some sales organizations, people don't care. It's like, you can be a jerk. You're really successful and you're a jerk. That's great. But if you're really successful and a jerk here, we just say you can't work here. You need to go somewhere else. And so these types of things, when they come up, you have to make sure that you put an end to it as quickly as possible, because your values and your principles are always under attack. And that's, I think, one of the things that we've done really well over the years.
Thank you for your time. That's been awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me on.
Scaling a business isn't a dream, it's a decision. This is the TechDental Podcast. And if you found value today, follow, share, and subscribe. This is the edge every dental leader needs.